This is Johnny Mitchell, and you are listening to the Matt Ballaker Podcast.
Today's guest is the biggest thing to come out of Portland since Tent City's Damian Lillard and Antifa. He's an author, former drug pusher, comedian, and YouTube sensation. Please welcome Johnny Mitchell to the program. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm great, man. It's great to see you. My former landlord. Should we tell the people?
That would explain how I got a free nose hair trimmer from you because you left one,
Oh, did I
and then
leave that behind?
it was unopened, and I've used it. I don't know if I used it right before this taping, but I'm sure people in the comments will let me know. But thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome, and thank you for renting to me despite my nefarious history.
Well, you were smart enough to not put it on the application, although I would have been more likely to rent to you, because it added some color, it added some intrigue. But you didn't start off, living in the coolest one-bedroom apartment in WeHo. There's a more interesting backstory. Where did you grow up, Johnny?
So grew up in Portland, Oregon, as you said, in a tent. Kidding, of course. No, there weren't a lot of tents back then. Portland has always been a countercultural place, right? Like it's San Francisco with less money. It's where grifters but not grifters like how we say like charlatans on Twitter today, like people that are just saying things for MAGA because they think they can make some money out of it. It's grifters was like a term, wayward people from all different parts of the country that didn't really have a lot of ambition, but they liked the outdoors. They liked being around weird people that like worked on bikes. Like I fix bicycles. That's how I make a living. And that's, Portland was just a place for like kind of, ugly white people to converge and like have a shared subculture. And so that's where I grew up. That's the Portland, Oregon that I grew up in. And then, we had some inner city elements too. And obviously that's what I adopted. That's
Oh,
what you know what I mean? I shied away from like the hippie, dorky white guy culture and went the
yeah. I
other way.
mean, you could have been backpacking, you could have been whitewater rafting, but you chose the more salacious, the more interesting route. So yeah, what were you like in high school? You're obviously tall, super handsome. I would assume you'd be a star jock, but what was the truth?
Yeah, I was super tall, not handsome. I was tall and skinny and just a pothead, just a super weird. I was a weird guy, man. Like I was always very well read. I was always super fascinated by cultures and yeah, I guess crime too. Like I gave up on I was an athlete as a kid, but then when I realized I wasn't going to make the league, that's when I totally gave it up. Cuz I've always been that way. I've never done anything for recreation. Oh, when I realized, oh my god, there's this thing called marijuana. Everybody smokes it and you can actually make a good living off of it. It's all I wanted to do from the time I was like literally 16 years old. And I was like, and of course, by that time, the early 2000s, I was already brainwashed by rap and hip hop culture, movies. I watched Scarface and The Godfather, and those really did have an effect. Those people say, oh, video games and movies don't cause people to go out and commit crime. Yes, the fuck they do to an extent. And so I was like, my God, how do I figure this out? This is all I want to do. This is everything I want to be. And so as the years went on, I just kept figuring it out a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So yeah, that's really for better or
Well,
worse, that's the truth.
yeah. How did you figure it out?
Well, I realized, okay, I have to, obviously I need a market. I need a big market, but I went to college and that's how I found the big market, right? Was I went to the University of Oregon and so obviously, right, like I'm not
Roots.
the first white boy to like become a kingpin on a college campus. So I realized, okay, now I have the market. I know all of these people that smoke weed, so they can be my dealers. But how do we make this move fast? How do they become my workers? I need the biggest supply. I need the cheapest price. So my workers, I can undercut the people that are trying to supply my retailers and they become my customers. So I knew I had to find the supply. Now I have my market. I have to find my purveyors. And so that took some time. I met, back Oregon obviously is known for weed, but we're known for growing the best outdoor marijuana. Before legalization and hydroponics and greenhouses, the best outdoor weed in the country comes from Southern Oregon, Northern California, right? So Mendocino all the way up until Ashland, Oregon, which is a little town just north of the California borderline. And so we met these farmers, and these are like out of work electricians, white guys that got knocked out during the great financial crisis, and so they just pooled their resources and now they're weed farmers. And so that, now I'm at the source. So I'm getting the better price and now I'm moving like, 5, 7, 10 pounds a week just locally to my dealers. And that was like a lot of money to me. I think I remember making by the time I was 22, I was making like splitting it with my partner, we each made like $2,500 a week. And
Oh,
I was like, how can it get any better than this? Like, there's no possible way. I looked at my man, I was like, we're fucking rich. What are we gonna do with all this money? $100 a week. And we had no idea what was coming.
no, and you're not taxed on that, or at least you're probably
Right.
not reporting that. So you brought up lots of good points, but you're certainly not the only white guy drug dealer at a big school like the University of Oregon, and so it takes some tenacity, it takes some edge to kind of outdo all the competition. What was it about you, your work ethic, your approach that helped you earn week?
It was tenacity. We didn't really go to school. We almost failed out. I didn't really go to college the last 2 years as much as I was there to grow my drug business. That's really what it is.
So it sounded like a focus. You weren't distracted with all the girls, all the classes. And just curious, what at least on paper, Johnny, what was your major?
My major was international. It was a joke. It was like international studies with a focus on development in Latin America and Spanish. So, but we took business classes. I actually really enjoyed some school. So
Uh,
I didn't graduated on time, but it was, state schools are a joke. You show up and you get a B minus. So I basically just did the bare minimum to get by. But when I woke up in the morning, I sold drugs until I started blacking out at 10 p.m. at night, and then we wake up and do it again. So school was an inconvenient sideshow to drug trafficking.
it can be very inconvenient, and for lots
Super
of
inconvenient.
industrious people. Now, obviously, the climate and the legality has changed. If they were to hire you as a lecturer, now that you've kind of been through the ringer, so to speak, what are some of the actual skills that you think are the most important for people who want to slang weed legally?
Well, the market has changed so much. I don't even know. I'm not even sure how the game works now. I think
Uh,
now it's like social media marketing. You people that grow weed illegally advertise on Snapchat, I've heard, and people are sending through the course of doing my podcast. You should see my inbox. I got drug dealers hitting me up all the time. It's pretty insane. So I think it's very, very, it's changed a lot. But back in the day, it was like using your instincts. You only deal with honest people. It's really kind of like most business, have integrity, be honest, customer service, constantly working with, I was constantly working with my dealers like, okay, this is how much I'm making. Like what else is out there? If you find a better price, come to me and I'll try to work with you. You know what I mean? So it was that kind of environment. It was there was violence sometimes and we got robbed and our doors kicked in and sometimes we would try to do that to other people, but for the most part it was a very free market. It was a very open market and the best people were the ones that did the best business. It's that simple.
it's some of the tenets that probably Warren Buffett looks for. Be good to
Sure.
your customers, operate with integrity, and kick down a door if you got.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
How do you think, because it's funny because, maybe funny is not the right word, but it's like months, a few years later, Oregon is one of the first states to go legal.
Right.
How
Yes. Yeah.
but I haven't been to a college campus anywhere in a while, but how is the legal market, or how do you think it kind of impacted the dorm pot dealers?
Yeah, the I mean, you know what? That's a good question. Because I think you might have to be 21 to buy weed at a dispensary now in Oregon. So I think the dorm pot dealers are still there because those kids are 18, 19 years old. So I think the dorm pot dealers are still thriving. This is my suspicion.
I,
I don't
I
think
would
you'll ever
never.
get rid of those guys.
Probably not. They're like cockroaches. They're going to be around forever. And God
They're gonna
bless
be
them.
around until after the nuclear bomb goes off, after the meteor hits, you'll still have dorm pot dealers.
Some things just don't change.
No.
So I understand, you're making this money in Oregon, and then it's all just sunshine and lollipops, right?
Well, no, because as the market as time goes on, by 2008, 2009, weed, it's not recreationally legal, but it's very, very accessible medicinally already at this time. So it's flooded. Everybody's trying to sell weed. Everybody is, the prices are coming down. It's getting exceedingly hard to turn a profit with the kind of weed we were dealing with, which was commercial grade weed. It was outdoor. It was good, but it wasn't like the stuff you smoke and you're fucking you can't feel your arms, your face. You're on the it doesn't put you on the moon. It's the stuff that you can move in bulk fast at a low price. That stuff was getting really hard. Like people just didn't want it. My partner retired. He just got out of the game. And I said, I got to look for different markets. And at the time, East Coast dealers were shipping their weed, had really begun to ship their weed en masse to the East Coast, where the prices were still, 2x at wholesale what you could get for a pound of weed selling it in Portland, Oregon. So that's what changed my life, and that's where we went from making 2,500 a week to 50,000 a week.
Mhm.
That's what put us in like the big leagues. So that was where it went from a fun little lemonade stand to a federal crime. That's where it got real.
You,
That's
you,
where
you,
most said, okay, this was fun. I'm going to go get a job, not
uh,
Johnny Mitchell.
you went to graduate school.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting my JD in drug trafficking.
Yeah. So to kind of fast forward, I understand your foray into stand up was not at a local coffee shop. It was at a government institution. Can you share
Yes,
what you
yes,
were
yes. It
doing
was at a
there?
government. That's right. That's right. It was a government sponsored gig.
So yeah,
Yes, yes.
how did you end up there?
So I completely shifted my focus just to shipping weed through the mail, UPS, FedEx, United States Post Office, Postal Service, USPS. And I did that for about 2 years. I probably shipped at least 600 or 700 boxes of weed, thousands and thousands of pounds, and made well over $1 million. Like killed it, shipped it to people in these gangs in New York, Manhattan, these Dominican guys. I had guys in Philadelphia. I had guys in Ohio. These are the biggest markets where the price of weed was the highest. So I did that, got caught. It's a whole story. Talk about it on my podcast. Didn't get caught with any product. I just I kind of got a slap on the wrist. I got really lucky. I mean, they found most of my money, but they weren't able to find any product. They weren't able to prove any kind of big conspiracy. I kind of just got caught on a fluke. They a drug sniffing dog at a FedEx sorting facility smelled the drug money that was being sent back to Oregon. Yeah, they never caught a box of weed going east. They got the money coming west. And so they followed that package, of course, to the address where I was having the money shipped to in Portland. The Portland Vice Squad, the detectives followed me back to my house. They got a warrant. They raided my house. There was DEA was there. I tried to bribe my way out of it. Tried to bribe cops, which is pretty fucking cool if you think about it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what jumped out. How cool that is.
I'm like, I was like, dude, I'm in Serpico right now. This is the 1970s. I can bribe these pigs.
Oh,
Uh, but they didn't go for it.
Oh, shit.
Uh, so, they ended up seizing quite a bit of, probably like in total, they seized probably like $800,000 in cash. I had already had one of my stash houses raided about a year and a half before that, and where they did find product, not much, but enough to get me a felony. So I was already on felony probation. So either way you looked at it, I was going to do some time. So I think I signed to like 36 months in prison, 3 years. And I did about half of that. I got a drug program. Like I went through this like state, basically like a drug rehab program for, nonviolent offenders. But yeah, in the course of that time, while I was at this prison in Eastern Oregon, this was like a maximum security. This was like I was in like a big boy prison for the first 6 months of my stretch. They had these talent shows that they would hold in like the cafeteria. And so I just started one day just on a whim. I just got up there and started doing impressions of like the guards, and I would start roasting like different gangs. And it was like brutal. Like if somebody had been recording this would have got you canceled. This was like brutal, but they loved it. And I noticed like I was just killing. And then as time went on, I would do more of these shows, and I started to get a reputation as like that guy that would roast you. And so people would come up to me and they would give me requests. Hey, roast my carnal. His baby mama just cheated on him. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, and I noticed like the more I tried to water it down, the less laughter it got. So the meaner, the better. Anyways, but I just loved it. I was like, it was the intoxicating feeling of killing.
And that was your first,
First time ever. And I didn't even know what stand-up comedy was. Like, even then, I didn't really realize what I was doing. It was like something I thought you had to be black to be a stand-up comedian. I just
and
grew
how,
up It helps a lot. Let's be honest, because I just grew up watching like Chris Rock, Cat Williams, Eddie Murphy. I didn't Patrice O'Neill, so I didn't know about Louis C.K. really at the time. I didn't know about Mitch Hedberg. I didn't have really deep roots in stand-up comedies. My plan was to move to LA and become like a screenwriter and an actor and become an auteur. Boy, did I miss the boat. But I was about 20, 30, 40 years too late. But that was my plan. And so when I got out of prison in 2012 and I moved to LA, I didn't start doing stand up till a few years after that, when I had given up on like, working in the business,
yeah, like,
which I quickly saw was like basically extinct already in like 2012,
so,
2013.
so legalization kind of,
What's that?
did legalization squeeze you out? Like, because a lot of people kind of go back to whatever prison in the first
Yeah,
place.
that's true. That's true. I never even considered going back to it. I mean, I couldn't after what I put my parents through, like we joke about it, but it was a really difficult time and an era, especially for them. So I couldn't risk getting caught again. And then yeah, getting into the legal marijuana business never interested me. Never. I'm
You're
like,
like,
this is for nerds. I'm a criminal. This is for nerds.
that's for boring squares.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, like, this might be a tough thing to answer, but how did you kind of keep your head straight? Because, a lot of, I mean, you kind of joke was only there, a year and a half or so, but that can be enough to like psychologically mess with lots of people. I mean, how did you like realize, okay, I got to change things, whereas a lot of people don't?
Yeah, I mean, just really like focusing on writing, like just scribbling screenplays on with those tiny little pencils they give you in prison. They're like golf scorecard pencils. So just by like candlelight, like I was Quasimodo or the Count of Monte Cristo, just a burning candle in a French jail. I was writing and coming up with these ideas and coming up with business plans and all of these like delusions of grandeur that I had. That's really what it is. Constantly reminding myself, despite all the humiliations and the incarceration puts you through, I'm like, I'm better than all these people. Fuck this. I'm just passing through. This isn't my life. You constantly have to remind yourself of that, because most people
Mhm.
just do fall into the bullshit and they end up like ODing or killing someone or whatever, and they catch another charge and then they're in prison for life.
Right. So what was better, prison or Los Angeles?
Dude, great question. I mean, prison was certainly a lot easier. It was certainly a lot more comfortable than living in sleeping on my friend's couch for 2 years in his studio apartment as I was doing open mics and, you know, working at coffee shops. It just horrendous, a horrendous place to start stand-up comedy. Yeah, those were brutal, brutal, difficult years. So to me, like just persevering for 10 years before I started to do the connect and make like to me, I'm like, oh, I made it just by surviving in this city and not, having to go home.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned you worked at coffee houses. For the civilians out there, open mics don't pay very well. So what
No,
did you do to make ends meet?
I waited tables. I was a property manager, which was game changing. I was like the on-site
Yeah.
manager for buildings for like, bigger like property management companies and landlords. So I realized, oh wow, this is the move because you get a free apartment. So that was a game changer. So I didn't have any money, but at least I had a place to like sleep and go, try to hook up with chicks. And like I would have these huge apartments in like Van Nuys, beautiful apartments, and no furniture in them. I'm like, 'cause I can't afford it. Yeah, yeah, huge. I got tons of space. And it would just echo. So it looked like a trap house. It looked like a crack dealer's house. Picture Rocky. Picture the bed that Rocky slept on. That's kind of what it looked like. Yeah, so that's what I did, and it was just gigs and hustling and yeah, I mean, not much of anything until the podcast finally hit by the grace of
Yeah,
God.
I want to talk about that. And I listened or read somewhere, gosh, was it a sporting good? Like, you had a job that you either hated and or quit right before you launched a podcast. Can you illuminate us on what you were doing before the Connect?
Yeah, so it was 2022. I had gone viral earlier in the year because I was doing a comedy show, I was doing a gig, and it was a rough show. And by rough, I mean, I wasn't doing bad. I mean, rough, like it was a show in Hollywood for what looked to be people that had just got out of LA County jail. I mean, there was like a guy rolling a blunt in the front row. Pretty sure half of the people had ankle monitors on. And I had a heckler. I was dealing with this drunk heckler and I was talking major shit. I was destroying him. I was killing him. And, he pulled me off. He basically ran on stage and grabbed me by the collar when I wasn't looking, and he pulled me down. And we got in this huge brawl. But I got it on film. And I told the producer, I'm like, send that shit to me, dude. I can do something with this. It was my Kim Kardashian sex tape moment. I
Mhm.
was like, oh yeah. So I clipped it, I posted it. It got like 20 million views, went crazy viral. I got a bunch of subscribers on my YouTube page. Reclipped it, made it longer, still another 30 million views. I mean, I have people that come out to my shows now on the road when I'm headlining, saw that clip.
Mhm.
And that's how they discovered me.
What was it, a plant? Did you know this guy beforehand?
It wasn't a plant, but friends of mine suggested, they were like, make that your shtick. Get attacked in every city. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I was like, oh, this viral shit is nice. So that's really where I became a full internet comedian. So I'm just going hard at podcasting, but I still hadn't monetized myself. And I was waiting tables at this fucking tourist trap restaurant in Venice. I'm 36 years old. Things are bleak, dude. Things are not, things are not looking like they're going to work out. But I would always watch like on YouTube. I was always obsessed with these like crime channels, these like former criminals talking about like what it was like being in a Mexican prison, and I know these all had like millions of views, and they look like shit. They look like it's a guy filming on his like not even an iPhone, like a Razor flip phone, and I'm like, motherfucker, what if I did something like this, talked about my experience, but it was well produced, like edited and it looked like news almost. Like these look like mini documentaries. So I went to my producer, my videographer, a guy who just filmed my stand-up sets, and I pitched him this idea and he liked it. He was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So I was managing a building in Hollywood and living there, like Hollywood. And so my producer built these fake brick walls, these like brick panels. We put them in the corner of the living room and we just got a chair. Literally just a chair, set up 3 different cameras around the apartment, lights, that's it, bare bones. And I just started talking about the old days.
Mm.
And I would just tell stories. Here's how drug trafficking actually works from somebody who can articulate it like a white boy journalist, but who also lived it. Nobody had been doing that. It was either one or the other. It was either a gangster with a teardrop tattoo, or it was some BBC journalist talking about the Sinaloa cartel. These people aren't getting it right. I feel like I did professionalize this genre on YouTube, and it was an immediate hit. It just it just took off right away. By the second episode, we had, the first episode was going viral by week 2, and in the first 2 months, we had 250,000 subscribers on the new YouTube page. Had each episode, full length episode, was getting between like 700 and 2 million, 700,000, 2 million views. We had offers from ad companies, ad agencies coming at us. Every short we were putting out was getting 5, 7, 10 million views. I was getting recognized everywhere. It was bonkers. And that was September of 2022. So here we are over 3 years later, and still doing our thing, still keeping the content pushing.
Still keeping the content pushing. Part of good content is new guests, new stories. It's easy. I don't want to say easy. It's one thing to go viral for a video or two. How did you source your guests? What was the process there?
Well, after we definitely realized I was like, okay, I'm going to run out of telling my own stories pretty quickly. The first 10 episodes of the Connect, if you go back and look at the history of the channel, those are all me. But that's when I realized I was like, okay, yeah, we need to tell other people's stories now. But when you're that viral, people reach out to you. So I would say today, 70% of the guests are people that reach out to us. They just, email us, DM us, whatever. I also, I've met so many people now. I'm plugged into the former criminal pipeline. So I'm networking. It feels like drug dealing. I'm like, oh, so and so. Oh, hey, meet this guy, right? So there are people we reach out to, but it's the majority of people now know about us and in this subgenre. And yeah, so that's what it is. Some people, yeah, and then our studio, we've relocated from Los Angeles last year. We relocated to Austin, Texas for, legal reasons, tax reasons, tax favorability. We got a big old studio here, so people come to us. And sometimes we still go on the road. This year we were in Mexico. We still do the documentaries every now and then where we go to travel to a cartel hotspot and research it and talk to people, and those really feel like well-produced documentaries. We went to Colombia. So yeah, so we do a lot of that still.
It's taken you abroad. And what are some of the biggest surprises that you've experienced?
Well, one of the biggest surprises to me was like, especially talking to people from Colombia or Mexico, people that have killed lots of people in their past. It surprises me just how much people can change. And remember, in places like that, you can actually get away with murder. You probably will. Your odds of getting away with murder in rural Colombia are exceedingly high. So you could work for a drug organization. They brainwash you from a young age. You end up killing people for them, probably get on drugs. But if you survive that, you grow up and you could just become a semi-normal person. Like this guy that we filmed with down there in Colombia a couple months ago, the guy probably has at least 30 bodies on him. And I'm not just, that's bad. It's not good. It's not there's justice. There's no justice, right, for the people that he's killed. But now he's an English teacher. He teaches English to Latinos that want to learn English. Corporations hire him, private citizens. He's a really nice guy. Like there's things that are off with you because when you commit those kind of crimes, you'll never fully be normal. But we went out to eat with him. We hung out with him. We let him drive our vehicle. We put our life in his hands, and he was just solid up and down. The guy goes to AA meetings. So that's kind of what surprised me about it the most. I guess A is how easy it is to go unpunished for a crime like murder in cartel run areas in Mexico and Colombia. but also how everybody's just kind of a human being at the end of the day. And even though these things are unfortunately normalized, everybody's just a normal motherfucker, you know? People are just normal. They just do abnormal things when they grow up in places such as, Cali, Colombia, or Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, right?
Well, a good accent. How
My Spanish is pretty good.
Wow. Well, again, it's it's kind of a kill or be killed mentality. It's like, I grew up in San Diego County, so I didn't have the same pressures that someone in rural Colombia might. So, I'm not here to judge, but I am here to ask you questions. And I know you're kind of like Madonna. You're reinventing yourself. You're not
That's
just
right.
doing a true crime podcast. You've kind of changed your tune a little bit. What's the next phase? What current phase for you, Johnny?
Well, we're still doing the connect. I'm amazed by the guests we're still able to get on. So that's still going really strong. So you can go to the connect, watch it on YouTube, watch it on Spotify, listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. That every week it's on Sunday. We drop new episodes. But then on the Johnny Mitchell channel, doing a lot of streaming, talking politics. I love talking. I love just muckraking. I'm a political junkie, kind of always have been. And so I'm talking a lot of politics now. Some people don't like it, but I just hate authority. People think I'm like some Democratic liberal cuck. Dude, when Biden was in office, I was like, I hate these people. And as soon as, and I just like everybody, I voted for Trump. I was like, let's give this guy, what do we have to lose? Let's get him one more shot. And as soon as I saw his cabinet that he was putting together, I was like, oh, we are fucked. So I dislike government wholly. I'm anti-power. I'm a pro-Bitcoiner. I guess you call me like a libertarian, but I love just talking about that. So if you go to the Johnny Mitchell page, we go live all the time talking about topical politics, topical current events, things like that.
Very cool. And it's a crowded space. Obviously, you have a unique angle. What, I guess, what differentiates you? Why should people share what you have to say?
I think I just do it in a funny way.
Hmm.
That's all it is. I can't, I'm not a journalist. I'm not, if you want serious journalism, you could go to the people that I watch. But I'm going to bring it to you in kind of an unfiltered way that I think people feel like Trump's appeal was that he was not polite. He just kind of talked like a person. He didn't talk like a politician, right? That's how most people are. Most people are like, they want somebody to cuss about it. They want people to get angry about it. So I come at it from a place of rage, but hopefully some nuance, like where I can, even though it seems like I'm being partisan, I'm trying to educate people that like are, in my opinion, the biggest threat to like freedom and economic development and yeah, even spiritual freedom is the government. It's not one side of the government that's better. It's all of it.
Yeah.
It's all of yeah.
What, maybe it was Dave Smith. Like this, there's someone who said it, and I believe it wholeheartedly. If you view like the components of the government, the parties, the FBI, whatever, CIA, as a crime family, it makes way more sense than if you ever look at them as like righteous or evil. It's like, how would a crime family, and then it just kind of fits. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, the bones of it never change. The bones of those institutions just keep growing bigger, bigger and bigger and bigger. And not to sound like a nerd, but that is the consequence of a fiat currency system. It's the consequence. It really starts with central banks, right? Us being ours central bank being the Fed, because when they have an ability to control your money, they have a tremendous amount of ability to control you. So that's why I'm super excited about Bitcoin and things like that, because I think that's the long term, that's going to be what shreds the corruption, the power of the state. I think things are going to have to get really bad though, but
Yeah,
before they get better like that.
yeah. In fact, I had a conversation with my son. I asked him, I was like, "What do you think caused?" I'm no expert. I did major in economics, so I probably know more than the average schmo. And I loved his answer because he's like, "Well, if you just keep printing more money, you have less of a percentage of it." And I was like,
Wow.
yes, like that. That was like so simple, but because people want to think of, they'll call like a relative. They'll say, "Well, look at the price of eggs. That's an example of inflation. It's a result of greed." It's like, well, you can have the greediest corporation on the planet. If you have a fixed supply of money, or if it's linked to say gold, we used to, it wasn't a fiat currency, there was a commodity backed currency. You're very
Yeah.
limited in what you can do. And when you're limited
Well,
in what you can do, your only way to tax, your only way to like raise money is really through taxing. And that's a hard go at it, as you've seen. But if you're able to just create more money kind of out of thin air, you can do all
yeah,
sorts of things. You can start wars, you can expand prisons, you can create more agencies that, I think when people start them, they have good intentions, but then the result is just the crime family gets bigger. There's no question there. That was
exactly.
just my little rant, but like it's in many aspects economics is boring. I understand why people don't pick up books about it, and I'm glad you do it. I'm glad there are more Johnny Mitchells in the world. But when you think about the link to like starting wars. Without a fiat currency, it's very difficult to start wars. With it, much easier. And then
Yeah.
look at all the wonderful
We
things that happen
think
from
about it,
wars.
we haven't declared war since World War II.
Mhm.
That's a fact. It's completely unconstitutional. They just say, no, it's a conflict. It's not a war. And then the president can just decree it. But back before, when your money was linked to gold, you could fight a war and then you'd be like, well, I'm out of money. So I guess that's how most wars in the 19th century stopped.
Oh yeah, no, and now it's like you can use just impact interest rates, and they don't even say printing money. We have all these like it's quantitative easing,
Yeah.
it, it, and it's gotten to the point where it's like every other country does it, so it must be good, and it's like other countries, we are the currency of choice. So it's like we kind of have outsized power when it comes to monetary issues because of our central bank, and people view that as a good thing. But like you're saying, like it's almost like drugs. I'm gonna take it back. It's like if you're an addict for your whole life and you stop cold turkey, what are the next few months gonna be like? What are the next few years gonna
Yeah.
be like?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you
Yeah.
have to do that to get on the upward trajectory. You have to do that to become.
Isn't it strange? I would think about that, the drug war. I was involved in the drug war. I was a victim of the drug war. I was part of the drug war. So that to me is kind of special. I think about that. I was like, I was part of this bootlegging era. I was part of prohibition. I took part in that. And I look back at it now and I'm like, oh man, this is all a consequence. I mean, you could blame fiat currency on that. You're like, well, first of all, like how is it the I can buy a kilo of cocaine for $1,000? That's $1 a gram, dude, or
Yeah.
1,500, whatever, in Colombia, and if I can get it to the United States, I can sell that kilo for $100,000. It's because our fake printed money is worth more because we have a military that could supposedly guard the world, and like there's all these like historical and political and geopolitical reasons for why when you cross an imaginary line our money is so much more powerful, but the the end result is it's because it's controlled by the government, and you see how the whole world is fucked by our ability to live to have this strong dollar. The rest of the world gets screwed, and so I
Mhm.
think we're coming to that's coming to an end.
Yeah, and if and when it does, it will suck. It
Oh,
would
it's gonna suck, dude.
take so much political courage to say, "We are 20 years. The federal government is not going to issue, or the Treasury Department is not going to issue debt.
No, no, no,
Good luck."
it's gonna
You
suck.
know, I mean,
It's not
there would
from,
be
like, seamless.
well, I don't want to get too depressed because that's a rabbit. For like a realistic rule or law when it comes to prisons, I would love to see the pay of either the guards or just called the prison institution be linked to recidivism rate. So the less likely people are to come back, the more money you get.
Uh,
I think that's relatively straightforward. Now, obviously, there's unions, there's other
yeah,
considerations, but now
right.
it's kind of the opposite. It's like the more prisoners you have, the more money you're going to make, and
Yep.
and so people follow incentives. That's just an idea. I'd like to see it, but you've been there. You've actually been in and out. What
Yeah, yeah,
pseudo
that's a
realistic? What
fascinating.
implementations would you like to see, Johnny?
Like, well, think that you're absolutely right about the incentives. Like, the prison guard union in California, for example, were famous for lobbying against the legalization of marijuana because they knew there's less people coming into prisons if that happens. That's such an evil thing. It's so evil. It's a plantation system when you think about that. Like incentivizing laws that get passed, but it's not just the prison guards union. It's Bob Barker's whatever sweatshop he's running. I wore Bob Barker clothing in county jail. You could see it. It's on the back of your shirt. It's a Bob Barker corporation that makes all this. There's all these companies, Aramark and all of these like, you know, industrial sludge food and processed utensils. And, I have a buddy, he's a federal contractor. His whole gig is getting food and food supplies to federal prisons. It's sickening. What kind of society, a society that has unlimited printed money that's the answer. Society that runs a deficit. But how do you keep people from coming back to prison? I mean, it's a loaded question, man. I think, probably health. It probably starts with changing the healthcare system. It does, because if you just legalize drugs the way Portland did, the way LA basically has, like legalized, you're going to have skid rows, right?
Hmm.
So you quickly see you can't just legalize. You can't just let can't just let the animals, the kids go have recess. You got to have rules around it. So it's probably got to be a combination of like European style universal health care and then locking up drug addicts. You don't lock up drug kingpins. You can if you want, but that never works. I know that sounds radical and kind of like mean, but it's if you lock up meth addicts, the worst of the worst, right? A guy that does coke, you're from Orange County. A guy who does Percocets with his wife in Laguna Beach, and then his kids are all pieces of shit, and their kids steal their parents' Maserati. That doesn't affect the society as a whole that much. I'm talking about the drug addicts that make the cities unlivable, right? Kensington, Skid Row, downtown Portland, on and on. The gas lamp in San Diego, on and on and on. You arrest those people, arrest them. You have to. You put them in prisons, but you put them in the housing that they paid the contractors to build, like paid billions of dollars. So these buildings in Venice and all over these cities that are sitting empty, but they're there for the homeless. You put them in there, but you put them there against their will. You convert those into like jail rehab centers, but then you really focus like a European Norway style rehabilitation. Actually, we're not here to punish you. Yes, you're here against your will, but it's because we're going to clean you up. And a lot of that shit, those programs work, dude. But you have to hold people. You can't let them voluntarily do it. You have to make them do it.
Hmm.
And then you're going to cut off demand. There'll always be a demand for cocaine, weed, call them middle class drugs, right?
Hmm.
But the drugs that everybody's up in arms about that we're supposedly like going to war against, even though Venezuela doesn't make any fentanyl, we all know that. The drugs that really kill people and make the cities unlivable, the solution is to start with the healthcare system and by putting these people in essentially nicer mental hospitals. Right. But as far as, I don't know how you stop the recidivism, and that would probably reverberate into penitentiaries where they just house people for general crimes.
Hmm.
If you look at San Quentin, that place is like a fucking movie studio now. It's like a movie production company now. I don't even think all they do is make movies and documentaries out of there. Everything in my feed is like, look at, we're throwing a rock concert. Hey, Led Zeppelin's playing on the level 4 yard in San Quentin right now. And I guarantee you see violence go down there. You see people because you're letting them live like human beings. So I think it starts with that. And that will that'll, be absorbed into the larger culture of, the prison system.
Interesting. And this kind of relates. What, aside from what you just mentioned, what wholesale changes would you like to see on the war on drugs?
Yeah, well, again, as I said, like basically, and people won't agree with me, but starting with the retail, starting with arresting drug users, but not giving them like figuring out a way to not criminalize it, but to essentially do it for their own good.
Hmm.
Start with that. Start with street level, call it quality of life drug crimes, the way that Giuliani did it in New York City.
Okay.
The danger with that is that you get America is so brutal and so reactive that you don't want to return to the 80s and 90s where a black guy who gets caught selling an ounce of crack now has to do 20 years in prison. That's not what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for like getting rid of the demand, like focusing, taking resources away from billions of dollars chasing these kingpins through the jungles of Guerrero, Mexico, and bringing those resources and focusing a lot of those resources away from the militarization part of it and putting the majority of it into curbing the demand
Mhm.
by mental health, by mental hospitals, by yes, prisons, but for to get clean.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's more treatment. And I guess we're interviewing you, not me, but I guess one thing that always kind of I struggle with from like a little like if someone is doing crack or whatever in their own house and they're not
Right.
outside, I don't care. I mean, I care. I understand there are ramifications, but like, do I want taxpayer resources going to like knock on someone's door who's like, even if it's fentanyl? I mean, I'm not saying I like it, but I don't. Do I want that? Now it's very different than when someone's like keeled over in the gas lamp district.
Yeah.
There's like a public nuisance element, but also do I love the idea of just locking someone out? But like, there's always going to be some sort of. It's not easy. That's why I have you on because I can't answer this.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. There's people that drink themselves to death every day inside of their house, and it's not like they, we would never say, yeah, send the SWAT team to go arrest them, right? Um, it's however, that's kind of where libertarianism falls short, right? Because you do need a service provider to you need referees if you're letting the game be free, but then you got to have referees to make sure everybody is playing fair. So that's why I don't think you'll ever see like a full anarchist system where there truly is no centralized government. But you know I really really believe that after studying it for years and of course buying it, I really believe a return to sound money will reverberate into every part of life, every part of society.
It's
So,
progress, not perfection.
yeah, exactly.
I can rock with that. What have you done professionally that you're most proud of?
Hmm. I think stand-up comedy. I'm very proud of the podcast. I'm very proud of these documentaries, but I'm the most proud of being able to, after years of bombing and doing these shit gigs, getting attacked on stage. I mean, buddy, I've put in my time, being able to go up in the main room of the Comedy Store and kill for even if it's just 10 minutes, which is usually all I get if I'm lucky enough to get up in the main room, is to get up there and control the crowd, to go back and forth between material, to be calm, to be in the moment, because I get such anxiety before going to do stand up, especially now because I'm not doing it every day like I used to. But for me now to be able to go up there and have it be second nature to live on stage, to live with me, that's really been the journey, is like to be myself.
I
I think
love it.
that's what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Makes sense. Very cool. And what are you most optimistic about?
Oh shit. That's a tough one. You should have sent that to me before we started recording. What I'm most optimistic about on a macro level, I'm most optimistic about America and the change that we can have because of the internet, because of podcasting, the freedom of information. I see it now, specifically with like Israel and it's coming out, the grip of the evils of that country and of the evils of the lobby in Washington. Uh, the evils of Epstein and human trafficking and the collusion between the intelligence bodies and just the evils of these bad actors that centralized power has allowed to ascend to these omnipotent heights, and to see how the freedom of information through X and YouTube and Rumble and podcasting, to see how people aren't buying it anymore. I think a political revolution is possible peacefully in America. Like I still feel like America has the most, even like Noam Chomsky, leftist commie, I even remember him saying, "America still is the greatest hope for change in the world." So long term, I do feel like that's what I'm most hopeful about.
Nice. So freedom of speech still has a purpose.
Yeah, for sure. For
Well,
sure it does.
where people that are tuning in, where can we send them, Johnny?
Yeah, dude. Every little bit, every couple 100 million counts, dude. Please check out my podcast, The Connect with Johnny Mitchell. We just have we have the best true crime stories, I think, going right now. So you can get that wherever you get podcasts. Go to The Connect with Johnny Mitchell on YouTube. We have 1.4 million subscribers now. And then follow me on Instagram. That's where I do a lot of my political content, a lot of my comedy content. And I'm still on the road. So I still do gigs, and next year I'm going to really start going out more, like doing proper tours again. So you can see me on the road. So follow me at I am Johnny Mitchell on Instagram. I am Johnny Mitchell, and yeah, man, just look forward to seeing you out there.
Yeah, do it, folks. Johnny Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Matt, it's great to see you, my man. Had a great time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.